Welcome to Alzheimer's Sunrise, lighting the way for patients and caregivers on Legends 100.3, brought to you by Alzheimer's Community Care, providing help and hope for thousands of families for the past 20 years. Here's Mary Barnes, CEO of Alzheimer's Community Care.
Good morning, and this is Mary Barnes, President and CEO of Alzheimer's Community Care, and this is our second show. And we put a name to this called Alzheimer's Sunrise, lighting the way for patients and caregivers. We happen to believe that is a very important part of what we do as an organization, which is Alzheimer's Community Care. My co-host, Karen Gilbert, is not with us today, but we have an exciting guest that I feel very privileged to have all you listen to, and we're going to share a conversation on things that we deeply are passionate about. And this is Dr. Teena Cahill, who is a respected educator, humorist, author, and TV and radio show host with a doctorate in clinical psychology and more than 25 years of experience as a keynote speaker. We've had Teena come to our conference a few years ago, and she was a big hit, and we're going to have her again in our upcoming conference in May of 2018. She likes to she likes to be known as Teena, so I'm going to take the privilege of calling you Teena. I feel that's a very big honor. Known you for a few years, and really our whole depth of what we are passionate about. You think we would slow up a little bit, but we can't, because it's so important in what we do. But I want to ask you a question, Teena. What was it that made you so become the centerpiece of a lot what you do as a professional, as well as being a wife, a mother, and just part of the community?
Well, the good news was that in the 1970s, women could get into doctoral programs. It started to happen that we could go to graduate school. So I actually...
That was just in the 70s?
Sure.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I got well, I mean, maybe there's some brilliant, fabulous women in graduate school before then, but for your regular, everyday, good student, hardworking person like me, finally in the 70s, women could get in because it was really hard for women before that. So I decided to get a doctorate in clinical psychology. I met this wonderful guy while I was in graduate school. We married. We had both been married before. We combined our 6 children together. Have a great life, and one night we went to bed, and by morning he had had a drastic neurocognitive incident, which would create, cognitive issues for him, end his career as a Marine Corps fighter pilot. He was on active duty in the reserves, and as an international airline captain. So I became a caregiver. So this was purely self-serving. I became interested in this role and how we could do it in ways that everyone flourishes. I also didn't like the word caregiver because I do more than giving. I also take. And I have a great life with great, wonderful personal relationships with my husband and family. And I started looking at what can I do for caregivers, because it's kind of like nobody ever says, oh, gee, when I grow up, I want to be a caregiver. I mean, even though we are, nobody wants to actually do that. And so I thought, how do I make this like more real, more fun? I don't have such a bad life.
But Teena, when you hear that word, damaged neurocognitive,
it's a little scary.
And how did you? I mean, I know you had the background of being a psychologist,
and it really helped.
That helped. But you had to really, a lot of times when it personally happens to you, it's personally that's happened to you.
Don't think I wasn't a wreck. I mean, of course I was.
So who did you turn to?
Well, I have a lot of friends, and I'm a firm believer in therapists being in therapy and things like that, so turning to help when we need them, and my friends. And it was a huge learning curve. And I'm a cognitive behavioral psychologist. I don't practice in Florida. I live in New Jersey where I have a practice, although I have a home down here, but we just come down here to play and hang out with Mary. And I know that our thoughts affect our feelings, and our feelings affect our behaviors. And that's sort of the part of cognitive behavioral psychology, a big part of it. And so from the very beginning, I said to myself, I'm going to have to think about how I'm thinking. I'm going to have to be in touch with how I'm feeling, and I'm going to have to really sort of take a look at what I'm doing. I want to go into this aware.
One of the things, though, I want to throw at you is we've never talked about this, but did you ever when you heard the word neurocognitive disorders or having a neurocognitive injury for your husband, did you ever feel shame or embarrassed, or did you ever feel that you couldn't share? Because that's what we get a lot, the denial, and this is where the shutdown happens when we're trying to get families or the caregiver.
You know, I think it's a little bit different when you have a major incident like he had than when you have the onset, which is slower, of a disease, because you couldn't ignore this. No one could say nothing had happened. I mean, he was near death. He was given no chance to live. And so this was dramatic, and there was quite a long time afterward that we weren't sure if he would make it. So I went right to hope. That's all I could do.
But you in your practice must find out a lot. What I just talked about is this that people just want to kind of hide it. That people just want to and that destroys myself, and that because first of all, I've had it in my family. The Alzheimer's is in my family. I don't know of a family out there that hasn't experienced it somewhere in their world.
Well, I think that probably as human beings, there is sometimes, no matter what we have, we can have a reaction to it where maybe we feel it's our fault or shame or something like that. I mean, I don't think that's an uncommon reaction. I think we all get that. Or are capable of getting that. And I think it's, again, being aware of that and talking ourselves out of that and knowing that there's help out here. There's help. I mean, what's this program about? This program that you guys do is about helping caregivers. It's about helping people with neurocognitive disorders. It's about making a difference for them. We're not alone. It doesn't mean you have to, leave the pack like the dogs might have done and go up and sit on the top of the mountain. No, you stay in the pack. There are people in the pack that are going to help you. You're not alone, and you're really the same person you were before this happened. It's just now you've got some more challenges.
Is that one of the ingredients for your resiliency?
That's how I look at the world. I make a choice to look at the world that way.
And you look at it as something could be worse than better. You look at...
Well, here's the great news. Every day my husband's alive, it's a victory.
There you go.
And that's how I look at it.
There you go.
So I make every day a victory. I could look at it another way and say, oh my goodness, what about what we used to do? What about how it used to be? What about this? And then I can make every day a defeat. But call me crazy, but I don't really want to live in a defeatist atmosphere that I create for myself. So I make a choice to see it as a victory, which is actually how I feel. And so maybe my thought affected my feeling, and my feeling, we approach, my husband's here in Florida with me. We're having a great time. He's probably watching some sporting show while we're doing this. He's got a pretty good life given all the stuff that goes on. And there are still moments of great joy and happiness and love and caring and excitement and fear and other things too. But, life goes on even with changes in either one of a partner in a marriage or in anyone in the family.
So being able to embrace that, even though...
Let's see what's
so
right,
often doctors, there's in the medical field, they'll say when they have that diagnosis, the only thing I can suggest to you is start looking for a nursing home, and that is so wrong.
Well,
in our society today, I mean, it was always wrong as far as I was concerned, but there is more. We believe where there's help, there's hope. So
yeah, well, there's help, there's hope, and I would say it might be wise to start looking for a nursing home. Who knows? Every situation is different. But let's look at what's right, not what's wrong, and build on that. That doesn't mean we can change the total reality, but it means we can make the new reality that we're living with perhaps a little bit more on our terms or a little bit more hopeful. Hope gives us energy. I mean, hope is so important to our well-being regardless of what's going on in our lives.
Well, the planning process is very important for us to get to families as soon as possible. And that's why
I would think so.
I say to
because that
the medical,
gives them hope.
That's
They're
right.
not alone.
And
there's a plan.
Yeah, it's all in having that person or the medical community or whoever's involved in the whole diagnosing process to reach over and just say, you know what, I think you have to go. This is where I'm going to recommend for you to start. Not to start with just looking at the nursing home, but look at a way of life, because it is a change of way of life. And when you say it openly, you say, my husband has Alzheimer's, it brings a reality. But then the next thing is there's the medication. And what is the medication? The medication is getting where that hope is.
Right, because even though things are going to change, things actually change slowly in life. Most things, not everything. But when there's a progression of a disease, it usually doesn't happen all in one day. There's a progression. And so I always try to live in the moment. In fact, I still live in the moment.
That's why they say the present is a present.
The present is a present.
Yep.
Right, because, the moment's the only moment I have to live in right now.
Yep.
So why would I go back and live in one behind me? Because some of those might make me really depressed, but some of those might make me really happy, but neither one of them are relevant, are today. And I really don't have I'm not a fortune teller, and I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I can look at bright, hopeful things in the future, and I try to concentrate on that. But I'll take it one day at a time.
You in your practice have come across many family situations. I want to ask you a question that's often asked of us. Do you think an Alzheimer's patient knows they're getting sick?
I have no clue. I don't know enough about that to know. I don't know. I would be afraid to even speculate. I just don't know that.
But
it's an interesting question, though.
Yeah, it's one that's asked of us a lot, and I happen to have a theory about that.
Tell me your theory.
I happen to feel they do know. They don't know it's the word Alzheimer's. They don't know. But one thing we all know is that there is a point in time that you have the caregiver and the patient on the same page. And that's when they're dealing with the reality of things are going on. Things are going wrong. So the whole reality of what we're trying to do with Alzheimer's Community Care and to get more insight about going to our website is alzcare.org. But there's another thing I would love for our listeners.
Can I just say something before you do that? I think the beauty of this show and calling it Alzheimer's Sunrise is for that moment you just talked about where maybe one or both people involved in this disease realize something is different. And what a great feeling to think that maybe there's a place that they can go get information going to you and listening to the show and finding their way to you and to other places, I suppose, around the country and all that kind of stuff, because we don't have to go forward alone.
No. And
it's most scary if we think we don't know what to do and there's nobody to help us.
And I know there's so many opportunities and so many ways they're saying, like, there's one size fits all for caregivers. That's really not true.
No, it's not. We're all
It's
different.
really not true. Mm-hmm. And to be able to show the illumination of that and to have people, we talked about so many different verbs and so many different action words when we were trying to come up with our name for our radio show, because this is very dear to us. And we want this moment to be with authenticity and clarity. We want this, how there's so much talk about so many other misinformation. Well, when you come to our show, you're going to get the reality, or you're going to get the truth. And that is so important for families to understand when they are talking to their doctor, when they are talking and seeking out medical support, benefit support, what's out there. It's such a maze.
Well, we are who we are. And just because we're thrust into a caregiving role, it doesn't mean that we've changed who we are. I wasn't a great cook before I was a caregiver, and I'm not a great cook now, I suppose I could read a cookbook, but I didn't read it before. I don't read it now. So, we are who we are. We have to take what we've got, and that's why you're saying caregiving isn't one size fit all, because it's who we are and how we manifest who we are, including being a caregiver.
Yeah,
but it's not our whole identity. I'm a grandmother. Well, maybe that's a caregiving role. I'm just all kinds of different
just
things.
like when we became parents.
Yeah.
We didn't go to school for being a parent.
Right.
We had to learn on our own instincts and our own way of doing it. It's the same thing with caregiving. All of a sudden, this diagnosis comes on the scene, and you have to look at your life and look at how your life is going to play out. And sometimes for some people, it can be very, very overwhelming.
Absolutely.
And not having the, like you said, you had a wonderful support system. Not everybody has that.
Well, I had to build it.
Not everybody has that.
Well, that's what you guys are providing, though. I'm not saying that a bunch of people rushed to me and said, let me be your support group. I built a support group. And that is what you guys do. That's the beauty. And that's why I've always liked working with Alzheimer's Community Care, because you provide a net for people. You provide a support situation for people, of education. So as they're trying to figure out what do they do next now, as they are among all the other roles they have being a caregiver, you're there giving them information.
You know, one of the things
Support.
we're always learning too.
Yeah.
We're always learning, and interesting enough through life experience, we've started a program called the Live Alone. Okay, so we're reaching out into the community and set up a program. Thank goodness we got a grant for that, but it's for live alones. Then you go one step further into that, and we go into dealing with veterans who
great.
are living alone.
Wow. Yeah.
And we have learned a lot about the whole reason why when veterans are alone and they're isolated, there's a lot of defenses, because they'll all say when you call them up or you go in there, not all of the most of them that I've talked to, I'm fine. I don't need any help. Even though they might not have anything in the refrigerator, even though they have not eaten for 2 days, the pride of being in the veterans, I've learned to going to the American Legion and seeing, and they want to help each other. But I learned from a veteran saying, veterans trust veterans. So you know what we're doing? We're recruiting veterans as being care buddies.
It's fabulous.
And it really
Fabulous.
has created another whole side of hope. And there's a reason, and so many, and the ultimate issue is when there is a spouse and there is Alzheimer's, if we don't get to them soon enough, that person is going to be alone because we're going to lose that caregiver.
You know, when you're talking about the veterans, I think there are a lot of women that are veterans now,
Yes.
but if we talk historically, there are gender differences. So I'm going to talk about my husband for a minute. I'm very aggressive in finding every Marine Corps related event that he can go to. In fact, we're going to one in a couple weeks down here, because I think you're absolutely right. I think for all of us, let's say we're veterans, or let's say we're a school teacher, or let's say we're a cook in a restaurant or whatever, it helps us to get in to the familiar milieu, the familiar group that we were always in, because that in itself gives us support. We probably had support in that group before anything happened. And sometimes it's just friends. So it's really important that we have groups that are familiar to us, where we're comfortable to go to. It helps remind us who we are.
Yep.
And also it's probably one of the first places for us to find support, because we know the people. We know the rules of the group, like the rules of being in the military, not really rules, but how you act, and that kind of stuff.
But the psychology and the issue and the way it was said to me by a therapist, a very wonderful therapist working for the VA up in St. Lucie County. And I was talking to her about our program, and she said, you got to understand about the veteran, especially the World War II veteran, the Korean War veteran, and the Vietnam veteran. The Vietnam veteran was the last veteran that we used as a draft. So you were talking 18-year-old, 19-year-olds, 20 years old, and every day that they were in service, they were having bullets whizzed around them. It was a life and death. And when you, after a while, live in that kind of environment, something happens in your brain that there's another circuit. It's a different circuit. And so knowing that information, we look at it the whole approach differently now, because the Alzheimer's, and when any of those the neurocognitive disorders come into play, it just manifests it that much more. So here they're telling us they don't need any help. They're doing everything. They're doing fine, and they're getting all the socialization. And what they're really screaming is, yes, I do need help.
Yeah, well, they're right. And so, look, there are lots of people, and I hear what you're saying, and that's probably true with a lot of people from the military, but from other places too.
Yeah.
I think that we have to sort of reframe how we approached caregiving, because I don't really think I give my husband help. My husband sort of has to initiate. He doesn't really initiate it, but I don't see it as help. I think that I feel as if I'm getting something out of it when we can go to the movies. So what it takes to get him to the movies or something, I don't see me as helping him. That's a cognitive reframe, right? And so one way to try to sell, quote, help to some of the people that don't want help is to let them know that this isn't really help, that we're getting something out of it too, and we're just there to help to enlarge their lives, because it's a good thing for them. And also, guess what? It's a good thing for me too. There's nothing that beats giving. A life of service is probably the best life anybody could have. It's a privilege. Now, there are days I wouldn't have to do some of the stuff I do. And I'm not saying every minute, and I'm not Pollyanna, and every minute, and I can be like a real I can get cranky. I can do all those other kinds of things. But what we all have to do in whatever situation that we're in is see what's right, not what's wrong, and try to build on that, whatever the situation is, whether it's a caregiving or not, and then ask for help when we need it, or get, help people help us do whatever we need to get going where we are. But, it's a good thing to look at the world and try to build on what's right. We're the big winners when we do that.
We've talked about a lot of subject here just in this short time because our time with you is very valuable. But I would like, if anybody has any questions about some of this, or comments about, what we talked about just now, you can get in contact with through my email. This is my address, mbarnes, BARNES, at alzcare.org. In other words, it's mbarnes at alzcare.org. And I would love to hear from other people's thoughts on this.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that it's there's no book on this. You know that, Teena.
Mm-hmm.
Teena. Everything is I can't tell you how many stories come into our organization every day. We must have in our system probably at least 500 to 1,000 calls a month in just dealing with in contacts and through our website and all of that. And it's really amazing. But there is a thread. There is a thread of consistency in what people are trying to learn and trying to figure out. Because, again, there's so many other different stories out there and so many other different analysis going on.
Yeah, and it's not all psychological help. I mean, we need financial help,
Exactly,
you need educational help maybe, or whatever.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
you need a broad array, but you guys have access to all that.
The beautiful part about the way we're structured is we not only have a lot of that latest research that's coming out and talking about different other types of therapies that are being tested not only in our country but in other countries, and that. But the other thing is we have hands-on experience every day. We're dealing with lives.
That's right.
Every day, and I can't tell you how many realities that we have. So the other thing is I know that, getting to one other little thing I have to say is we've got a fundraiser coming up at the Beach Club in Palm Beach on February 7th. And if anyone would be interested in wanting to learn more, you can go to our website, alzcare.org, alzcare.org, O-R-G, or call us and ask for Jonathan Price. And he's our development person and for our professional at 561-683-2700. We would love to we have a lovely program, and we'd love to have, I know I'm going to have you. You're going to be coming.
It'll be fun.
And it'll be fun. But I would love to have as many listeners as possible to come and learn more about what the organization is trying to do. And our illumination, one of the things that kept on coming up about what's the purpose of this program and about our radio show, and it's really illumination and having the real clarity of what is it all about.
And also knowing that we're not alone. I think that's a big part of it.
We have established a reputation in the community about that we look at both. We have to look at both.
Right.
And I think that that's what you have been able to identify, too, about how important that caregiver is and how important that family is, along with the patient, along with that person that's really gotten the diagnosis.
Yeah, we need a community. You guys provide a wonderful community down here, and if we're someplace where that's not available, we can turn to churches, schools, social groups, whatever, and build a community.
Jonathan started something for the holidays, and he approached Publix. And Publix went ahead and helped us do some celebrations with our patients.
Great.
And when you're starting to see that kind of a heart, I mean, we have seen it all the time. I mean, we've been amazed at the goodness. Not amazed, but it's good to see it. It's good to feel it. It's good to understand it. And we really feel that making our community Alzheimer's friendly.
That's great.
And that's. Dementia is not a word that we like to use all the time because dementia, what is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia?
It's a generalization.
And it's not a disease.
Right.
It's a symptom. It's like I say to you, you got a fever and you're walking out of the doctor's office. Oh, I got a fever. That's okay. Yeah, but what's causing the fever? What's the root cause of that symptom? And so that's another big advocacy thing that we're trying to make sure people ask that doctor, get that test, find out what that really is going on with my liver. It could be reversible.
Well, it could
What
be
an idea.
Well, also,
what a
I
concept.
mean, there are many things that can affect our memory.
That's right.
You know, the stress hormones, all kinds of things. So every time we don't remember something, it doesn't mean that we have something serious. But, you know, it's something to think about. And if you're worried, there's lots of ways to get help.
Yeah.
And get support.
Well, I want to thank you very, very much on you sharing this time
pleasure.
with me and time with us and time with our listeners. And again, we will be coming back. This program is going to be on Sunday mornings. And on behalf of Karen Gilbert, who's not here, but she'll be with on the next show, we both co-host this moment in time. It's just meaningful to have people like you who really value our families and value and understand and give that help and hope.
Well, it's my pleasure because I really value what you guys do. And I think that I love it when we all work together to try to help one another have better lives.
And that's what life is all about, isn't it?
That's right.
Thank you, Dr. Teena Cahill, and she will be at our conference in May of 2018. And maybe you should come to the event that we're having on February 7th because you're going to meet her in person. So thank you so much. And again, this is the Alzheimer's Sunrise, lighting the way for patients and caregivers. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Alzheimer's Sunrise, lighting the way for patients and caregivers. To learn more about the help and hope available from Alzheimer's Community Care, call 561-683-2700 or visit alzcare.org. That's ALZcare.org. Tune in next Sunday at 6:30 for another edition of Alzheimer's Sunrise, lighting the way for patients and caregivers, right here on Legends 100.3.